of Oregon, a Democrat. Congressman, what does the president, in your eyes, have to do tonight to get you closer to his side?
I want the president to tell us how he's going to pay for this $700 billion bailout, and I don't want it to fall to the taxpayers. There's a way in which this could be financed by Wall Street itself. We had a transactions tax from 1914 till 1966. It was doubled during the Great Depression. And if we reimpose that tax, 0.25% per trade, Wall Street could raise $150 billion a year to take care of its own problems. This should not be borrowing. Where's the president going to borrow the money? What does that mean to the dollar? Or is he just going to print it? What does that mean to inflation and the dollar? The overseas markets want to see some fiscal responsibility here. And it happens that the London Exchange has this same fee. So no one can say, well, we'll move to London. Well, you move to London, you're going to have to pay the fee. So I think this would be the key thing for the president to say. This is not going to be financed by Main Street to Wall Street.
All right, then let me ask you this. There is the fear here whenever you talk about fees that of any sort, Congressman, that they're simply passed along to average folks anyway. In this case, it would be to traders. And they're not all fat cats. So the traders, folks like you and me, will feel that. What do you say?
Well, okay. Well, gee, let's see. If you do a $10,000 trade, costs you $25. You pay Ameritrade $12 for the same trade. This would be insurance that Wall Street isn't going to go in the tank. The economy isn't going to collapse. It would be insignificant for anybody in a 401k. It would be insignificant for anybody who isn't a day trader. Yeah, you're right. People who trade massive volumes daily would have to carry a little bit of the load. 1%, not too much to ask. Should we give a $2,500 debt to every man, woman, and child in America? That's Bush's alternative here.
Okay, do you get a sense, though, talking to your colleagues, Congressman, that support for this package as it stands is just dead? It's gone. That something, and you're closer to this than I am, sir, something kind of sort of grew in the last 24 hours where people said, no, we hate this.
Well, they're attempting to stampede people. For instance, the Democratic caucus is going to hear from Laura Tyson tomorrow with her credibility as a Clinton advisor. Just happens she's on the board of directors of Morgan Stanley, and she really doesn't like my transaction tax idea and thinks we should bail them out. Now, let's get some impartial advice here. Let's get some economists in who say, wait a minute, this isn't that big of a crisis. I had the credit unions in today into my office. They're lending. In fact, they're lending to people who have perfectly solvent businesses who've had their lines of credit cut off. They told me by direction of the FDIC. I've got my staff investigating that. Why would the FDIC send down a directive to banks in Oregon saying don't give credit to long-term good credit customers unless they're trying to precipitate a herd mentality and a crisis here to drive Congress to do what Bernanke, Paulson, and Bush want?
All right, so bottom line is you see it, Congressman, the sticking point for you, and by the way, a lot of Republicans, is the taxpayer getting saddled with that whole $700 billion.
Absolutely. When the Asian markets went down on Monday, some people said, oh, it's because you didn't act quick enough. No, if you read under the covers, they said, wait a minute, America doesn't have $700 billion. They're borrowing money for a war. They're running a $500 billion deficit. They're going to borrow that money or they're going to print it. The dollar dropped and oil went up. You know, it would be a really bad idea for us to borrow that money.
Okay, so the argument that you're borrowing it temporarily, you sell these assets, maybe the government makes money, you're not buying that.
How long is it going to take to even figure these assets out? How are you going to price the assets? It's incredibly complicated.
Understood. Congressman, thank you very much for coming on.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, for the president, man, oh man, it's a lot of pressure, right? He is set to speak to the nation tonight. Now, at first, we thought he was going to pitch a package that now looks essentially dead.